finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
All right, this week, episode 101, we are going to have our drawing for the prize extravaganza.
100th episode giveaway.
Yes, and we have a hat to draw from.
So we're having
with all the entries.
Already a spousal disagreement prior to the show starting about the type of hat we were going to use. For those of you listening, you can't see what he held up, which is a giant Texas, what's it called? A Texas
it's sort of
sombrero.
That's a cowboy hat. But it's got a very good story. It's a cowboy hat I bought in a truck stop just outside of Austin, Texas, about 80 miles out of Austin, Texas, when I was moving my daughter there, or our daughter, I guess she's both of our kid. And I was super grumpy because I had to drive the U-Haul and was towing a car, and it was super windy and then it was this lightning storm where it would go completely daylight and then completely night and be blowing sideways. And I'm stressed because I'm trying to keep this thing on the road. We pull over, I go get gas, and I see the hat as I'm leaving, and I go, this is going to be funny.
Sees this thing of beauty.
Yes, because the kids are going to be like stressed because I'm like freaking out so much. So I said, I got to lighten the mood a bit. So I bought the hat. I walked out. I put the hat on. I go, we're in Texas. Let's go to Austin, bitches. And they laughed. They thought it was awesome.
And anyway, I thought it'd be fun to pull it out of this. That's the reason I put it on for the show, the Santa hat, because it is Christmas and it is a gift giveaway. But we will use the 40-gallon hat because that's how big it is
40?
To fit on your head.
Well, yes, to fit on my head, it would be at least 40 gallons.
And this one on my head is a 4-cup hat.
It's a pint.
Pints are good, especially if you live in Britain.
Pint, even filled with vodka, you can't get a buzz off that.
You live in Britain, we love pints. Anyway.
It's a point. All right, so are you going to do it, Vanna?
Here we go. We're getting the giveaway going, and I am actually also recording on here to put it live. So I get to pick. Ooh, shuffle up all the items. Here we go. The winner is...
That one doesn't count.
That one was let's start the entries off. It was a family member, so they can't officially be involved. So that one's gone by. And the winner is our Facebook entry. Rebecca Smith Walthius wins.
She wins the entire thing. And she gets a special honorable mention because she posted how many minutes she has listened to our podcast for over 1,000 minutes in the last year.
I know, she sent us. I think she's listened to. It was 1,000 minutes on Spotify. It gave her like a congratulations record, and I thought, I can't remember. I want to look again. Are you sure it wasn't all the episodes? Well, if it was over 1,000 minutes, that's got to be close to all the episodes. We've had a few that have gone like an hour and a half. So maybe not every single one, but darn close. Maybe Rebecca can let us know. Anyway, I'm super excited for her to get this. Although we decided that we were going to give away a runner-up prize. Remember,
yes.
Tim? What is that beautiful?
The runner-up prize is this lovely bag of my leg hair. Yes.
And what pathetically sad runner-up winner is going to get that?
I'll draw that.
Okay. Tim's drawing.
By some unbelievable coincidence, it's Rick Dancer. Rick Dancer has won a bag of my leg hair.
Rick Dancer from the Rick Dancer Show has just won a bag of your leg hair.
Yes.
Well, after that, I don't know if there's even any point going on. I mean, that's just I'm speechless.
No, and then we have a couple.
I'm sorry, Rick. That's all I have to say.
We have a couple honorable mentions that we're going to do.
Yeah, we decided that because we have such faithful fans, they really do need some recognition. And so we're going to shout out to Jeannie Thorpe. Jeannie's a sweet lady, a local friend, and she is actually our top rated Facebook fan. I think it says Diamond fan. She comments all the time. She likes our reels. She flips Tim some crap now and then. And so for our runner-up fan, actually what we have, and I'm going to send her, and this is part of the grand prize, is actually a copy, not a hard copy, but it'll be a digital version of Hormone Secrets by Dr. Robert Yoho. And this is one of the things that was in the grand prize. We also have this book from Dr. Peter Breggin, COVID-19 and the Global Predators, We Are the Prey. So I have a copy of that for Jeannie as well. It's a little light
and we just want to
reading.
Just want to note that for those listening and not watching, Hormone Secrets is spelled HORMONE, not WHOREMOAN, which would also be hormone, but it would be entirely different and something we would never approve of. So we want to kind of keep it clean around here. So
please,
just in case you had a question,
please keep it clean. And then I actually also have a third item for the runner-up. Not the runner-up, I guess. It's the big fan prize because the runner-up is just the bag of hair, no books, which is let me think, the digital Audible, not digital. It would be Audible version of
The Real Anthony Fauci.
RFK's book, The Real Anthony Fauci. So, Jeannie, you are getting 3 books, and
RFK's book is very robust. It is incredibly detailed. It is quite long. You could probably drive from here to Bangladesh.
Well, that's why it's nice to listen to it on the Audible.
Because, driving to Bangladesh has become a popular vacation thing for people to do.
Yeah.
The ocean gets in the way.
Exactly.
But, hey.
And I decided, since we have copies of those digital books from Dr. Yoho and the Audible, I should say, book from RFK, people in Canada couldn't get in on the drawing. So we are sending our top Canadian fan a copy of those as well. That is Dale Nygaard. He's our biggest Canadian fan, and you're going to get copies of those 2 books. So congratulations, everybody. Rebecca will be sipping her grand prize through this cup. Actually, 2 of them from Sisters Coffee Company, and some fresh roast Sisters blend, which I love, and I'm drinking right now, as well as all the other goodies. She's going to be super excited to talk to the Plant-Free MD.
Yes.
Anthony Chafee and
Sabine.
She gets to play with her poop and get her microbiome tested.
Oh, yes.
Some branched chain amino acids, which I know Rebecca will use. And
yeah. I mean, she's an endurance athlete, actually a very accomplished endurance athlete. So that
so thanks everybody that entered. It means a lot to us that you actually participated, listen, and Rick, we will mail your little package pronto in a Christmas gift bag.
And you can probably pull enough DNA off the leg hair that you could clone me and maybe have a garden gnome that would potentially entertain you and mow your yard. You never know.
Perfect. All right, moving right along. What's this week's episode?
We talk about is healthcare a human right? And you could probably guess the direction we're going to take on that. But it's a really good discussion with Alan Thayer, an attorney from Eugene. He's been involved in all sorts of the ballot measure kind of stuff that's gone on in Oregon for years and years. He understands this very well because he does business law for the most part. So this stuff is very important. These concepts of rapidly changing laws in the constitution of the state are obviously important to business people that want to try to stay compliant with what the laws are. So he's great. I start ranting my head off, as you can imagine. And Alan, you understand why he's such a great attorney, because he is the calm, reasoned voice the entire time. So that's fun. We're not going to do any more intro because we've done enough. So we're going to head on. And this episode's a little bit longer, but a lot of fun and a lot of really good information. And for those of you that don't live either in the United States or in Oregon, it's still very important, because Oregon is a litmus test for a lot of these lefty ideas. And the way they test them, because the state's so small and it's so inexpensive to test ballot measures, is they test it here because there's only 5 million people. And if they can make it fly, then potentially they expand it to other places in the country. And we've seen this again. The classic of that was medical marijuana, and then marijuana laws, started in Colorado and Oregon, and then it just swept the country because they figured out how to get it passed.
Right. So this does impact you, even though you don't live in Oregon. This could be blowing your direction.
Yes. So, yes. And it could be sucking all the money out of your wallet. So enjoy that. There's nothing like a good wallet money sucking, is there? Oh, it's just so satisfying. See your money fly away.
It totally blows. That's all I have to say.
That's right. All right. So on to Alan Thayer. All right. Welcome back. Welcome back to BS Free MD. We have Alan Thayer, an attorney from Eugene, Oregon, and we are going to do kind of a deep dive into Measure 111 in Oregon. For those of you that live in another state or another country.
Or if you didn't vote and don't know what Measure 111 is.
Right.
We will.
Measure 111 just passed because, of course, we have to count votes for 2 or 3 weeks. And I'm hoping the Lincoln Douglas results are in soon. But, we never know. At any rate, it just passed, and it is ensconced in the Oregon Constitution the right to affordable health care as a basic human right. Yes, you've heard that correctly. Healthcare is now a basic human right in the state of Oregon, as well as meth and heroin. So enjoy, because combining those could never end poorly, could it? Well,
what a combination.
We talked to you about a year ago. Alan, welcome back. I can't wait to get into this discussion.
Well, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed the last time we visited, so thank you.
Hey, before we get going, why don't you just give our listeners that didn't hear the last time a little bit on your background, what kind of law you practice, and how long you've been in the business?
So, Oregon business lawyer. Grew up in Oregon, northwestern Oregon, southwestern Washington. My father was a forest manager for a Fortune 500 timber company. Practiced business law in Eugene since I graduated from law school in 1985. And I'm a business lawyer. But one of the things that I've done is public policy has always been important to me. And so I advocate for clients before stupid bills even become enacted in law, and we try to make them less stupid. I've been on the board of directors, I think, for 6 years on the United States Chamber of Commerce. And then I've been on the board of directors and the executive committee and an officer for Oregon Business and Industry, which was previously known as Associated Oregon Industries, AOI, since 1998. So I've been... It has been helpful to be at the table as some of these things come down, just so that I'm in a position to advise clients on what to do and what not to do, and what may be coming. Actually, that could be a topic for another show. Is there is something moving its way through the legislature right now in anticipation of the Oregon legislature that will meet in February. And we could talk about that at another time if you want.
If it's depressing, let's talk about it another time.
Well, when you say moving through the Oregon legislature, I only can imagine a turd.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Does it pretty much look and smell like that?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a bill where you kind of look at it and say, well, how can you be opposed to that? But when you dive down into the specific words and how they could be interpreted, there's reason for concern. I know we're going to be talking about ballot measure 111, and I identified 5 words, which actually 7 words, I guess, because there's 2 parts to it. 7 words that give plenty of opportunity for mischief and ambiguity. Years ago, I was at a breakfast meeting, and it was the morning after a case was decided by the Oregon Supreme Court. It was a split case, and it had huge implications for businesses, particularly the business who was the defendant. And the trial court and the Court of Appeals and the Oregon Supreme Court, they all disagreed on what the result should be. Of course, the Supreme Court got the last word, but even then it was on a split decision. So speaking to us at this breakfast is a guy who had been a member of the Oregon legislature, had been the Oregon State Labor Commissioner, and was now on the Oregon Supreme Court. So he'd been through all 3 branches of governors, or all 3 branches of government. And then later, after that meeting, he became Oregon's governor. Ted Kulongowski is his name. And Ted's the nicest guy. I have tremendous respect for Ted, although he and I may disagree on a few things, and that's no surprise to Ted. But I asked him, I said, if all these judges and if the learned members of the Oregon Supreme Court, after briefing and oral argument, couldn't agree what the right course of action was, how was a line supervisor at a lumber products mill supposed to know what to do? Because fundamentally, business wants to comply with laws. Just tell us what we need to do and we'll do it. And Ted Kulongowski said something very interesting. He said that if the legislature said what they really meant, nothing would ever pass. Therefore, it is up to the court to fill in the blanks. I mean, that's terrible. That's terrible. And then a number of years later, when he was running for governor, was actually right before the primary election in the race where he did prevail both in the primary and the general election. I was with him on an airplane, and I reminded him of that question, and he had the exact same answer. Thank you, Ted Kulongowski, for the honesty. But I suspect there's some of that going on with ballot measure 111.
Well, it sure seems that way because of how vague it is. So should we?
Well, it is quite vague. Well, I got on their website and I read through it, and it was quite interesting because basically it says 3 things. We believe everyone in Oregon has a fundamental right to affordable health care. Number 2, this will be ensconced in the state constitution. And number 3, this is not a tax increase. And I went, no, it's not a tax increase. It's just going to cause a whole bunch of other tax increases, you geniuses. And then, of course, I went and I looked and I saw who was supporting it. And then my eyes, okay, so there was a lot of the, tons of unions, tons of more, politically left organizations, which all kind of made sense to me. And then again, politics do indeed make strange bedfellows, because Planned Parenthood, they help support it, which kind of makes sense. It's a health organization, whether you agree with them or not. They bill for services. And Providence.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a, Catholic run health insurance company where you need a special dispensation from their board of directors to get a sterilization procedure done. And I was like, well, why would these guys both be supporting it? And I'm going, of course, it only makes sense, right? If healthcare is a fundamental human right, this is going to be a gigantic cash funnel to healthcare organizations and primarily insurance companies. Good job, guys. So all the lefties are out there canvassing for something that makes them feel good so they can transfer wealth to some of the richest companies in the entire country. That makes a tremendous amount of sense to me.
I'm not too sure it's going to include the insurance companies long run, but we can get into that here in a moment.
Yeah. So let's dive right in there. So fundamental human right. My initial kind of freak out when I see this is, it reminds me of that speech that Obama gave years and years ago about the difference between, that essentially the Constitution is a list of negative rights. It's all the stuff the government can't do to you, which makes sense to me, right? But then this whole business of, well, we need positive rights. So we need to have, a constitution where the government has to do stuff for you. And I go, oh, you mean like the Soviet Union's constitution? That sounds great. And so this whole idea that if healthcare is a fundamental human right, and I'm a doctor, and it's protected by law, that means ultimately all laws are enforced at the barrel of a gun, then someone is at least metaphorically putting a gun to my head and extracting my knowledge and my experience, which I will not be privy to that. I will not consent. I hereby do not consent. So am I right, or am I just a crazy right-wing insane person?
No, I think you're right. I've always thought of the political spectrum as a circle instead of a line. And, at some point, the far left and the far right are going to meet. And that'll be interesting. But no, I think you're right. We talked off air a little bit about ballot measures in Oregon. And ballot measures in Oregon have become a science. And here's how it's worked. And it was pioneered by a guy by the name of Bill Sizemore in the 90s, who had some tax limitation measures that he got adopted, and some other conservative ballot measures. They then came after him for tax fraud, which was, I believe, and I understand, I'm told was a crock, but came after him hard with the police powers. And then at the end, well, all he did was he failed to file one tax form, and that was it. But they really pretty much shut up Bill Sizemore. But here's how it works. And Sizemore was the one who figured this out. You come up with what you want to do, and you change the wording a little bit with different ballot measure titles. Then you test those titles by polls, and then then in Oregon you submit your ballot measure, and then the state will tell you what your title will be. And if you get the title you want, then you go for it. But you submit, Sizemore would submit like 6 or 8 ballot measures, and no one knew which one he was going to be soliciting signatures for, because only he had access to the polling. So if you get a good ballot title in Oregon, your ballot measure will pass.
So it's all about the title, not
yes.
the content?
Yes. And that's why, so Oregon had some very consequential ballot measures this last election. And I mean, our TVs were bombarded by commercials for candidates, but did you see very many commercials for ballot measures? No.
No, in fact, I'm embarrassed to say, as a physician and a 28-year resident of Oregon, didn't even know that the healthcare was going to be on there.
Yeah, I can understand that. They put all their money in pre-filing polling. That's where the money is. They don't do much once it hits, and the opponents usually don't do much either in opposition. Where they try to influence is at the ballot title level. And so, hey, healthcare as a fundamental human right. Wow, who can disagree with that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, seriously, if you hadn't heard of that and you don't do your research, and I mean, they can throw anything on there. And if I get to the poll, I mean, we vote at home, but I was like, well, what is this? I think other times we've done filling in our ballots. I don't know that anything caught me off guard quite like that did. Usually some of them I laugh at, some of them are obvious, but you're right. Someone gets to the polls, say they go in and they have all these questions and it sounds too good to be true. And then how do you research it?
So when a ballot measure hits, you can look at the voter's guide and determine, okay, who's in favor of it and who's opposed to it. And that can usually give you a pretty good hint which way to vote. But the rule I believe in is, if in doubt, vote no. And
but then we could punish people with slavery, because that was on the ballot as well.
But slavery isn't even in the Oregon Constitution. That all was about prohibiting prison labor, making prisoners work. And it's not like we're China. We have prisoners manufacturing. I guess I won't mention the brand of any clothing apparel.
But it rhymes with bikey.
Yes.
Hey, off air, I actually have some pretty good Nike jokes.
Okay, good.
But it's not like China. We don't have forced labor making goods in Oregon, but they have had incarcerated felons providing services to the state of Oregon, and I think it's voluntary, and I think they get spiffs in exchange. It's less than Oregon's minimum wage, but they are contributing back to society. Some of them are working on in fields where they can get a job when they leave prison and maybe break the cycle of crimes and incarceration. I mean, it's a good thing. But you may ask, why ballot measures like prohibiting slavery in the Oregon Constitution when it's not in there, and healthcare is a fundamental right. Why would this happen in Oregon? And why should people outside of Oregon care about what the liberal idiots in Oregon are doing? Well, here's why. Oregon is a relatively small state. There's only 4 million people in the state of Oregon. And it's fairly liberal. Because of gerrymandering, the legislature is more liberal than I think the state as a whole. You look at these ballot measures that passed, they didn't pass by a wide margin. And if people really knew what was going on, many of them probably would have failed. But Oregon is a cheap state for advancing progressive ideas. And so advocacy groups will come in both with ballot measures and at the Oregon legislature and advocate and try to get these laws passed. It used to be Oregon would follow what California does, but now these different groups are testing it in Oregon before they even get to California, because Oregon's a lot cheaper to do so. So that's why we're seeing this stuff. And that's why if you are in a state and you see a ballot measure with vague language, if it's short, look out. Why you should pay attention, and maybe talk to someone from Oregon on why you don't want to do that to your state.
You mean like the meth and heroin? Because that's worked out unbelievably great.
Yes.
But I find it hard to believe it's that simple, where someone comes up with an idea and then it's like, oh, I would like to see this passed in the next ballot or in the next vote. And all you need to do is, sounds like, well, the main thing is get the title polished and well. And then you need to poll people. Isn't there a certain amount of signatures that you need on it in order for it to pass or put forward?
Yeah, but you have paid signature gatherers. So that's
okay. So what if, it just reminds me of kids running the candy store. So people in Oregon have an idea and they decide that they want to not overturn the government, but come up with this idea. And as long as you can get enough people and friends and paid buyers say yes, it gets to go on to the next ballot cycle and we all get to vote on it.
Well, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of cost here, but the cost is in the polling and the cost is in the signature gathering. The cost isn't in buying TV ads once the measure makes the ballot.
But as long as a majority of people go, oh, that sounds like a grand idea. Everyone gets a free television in the home in Oregon. Yeah, we all want a free TV. Then boom, it's passed, and that there's no checks and balances from people above.
No, well,
saying this is a bad idea for the good of the state.
If it's super crazy and passes, you can still sue, and it can still get gummed up in the courts, can't it?
Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, the Oregon courts are also quite liberal.
But this reminds me of patients coming in. If you had a mob of patients and they're like, we want Z-Pak every time we get a cold. We want Z-Pak every time we get a cold, and majority rules. That's not for the good and the health of the patients, even though it's mob rule. So is it that way with laws?
The Oregon Supreme Court gives a lot of deference to the legislature. And then once the legislature passes a bill, then it goes to a state agency to say what the legislature means and interpret that bill. And the court gives great deference to the agency in interpreting what the legislature meant.
So
I'm still dumbfounded.
No. But this is the experience. We took our kids across the country in 2013, and we're in DC, and we're standing at the subway, and there's all these 30 somethings in nice suits with briefcases waiting to get into town from outside the Beltway. And I looked at, and I said to the kids, I said, you see those people? Those are staffers. That's who runs the country.
Or lobbyists.
Yeah. I said, that's who runs the country. It's not, it's like, you look at Obamacare, what was it? I mean, some ridiculous 20,000 pages or whatever it was. But the devil is truly in the details, and you never see how it works. So they pass the bill, and then the regulators decide how to interpret what that is. And they're the guys that actually control your life, are the regulators.
So I understand, obviously, government is supposed to work for the people. But like I say, if the people have come up with a kind of a terrible idea that's going to sink the state financially or do more harm, isn't there some checks and balances would be, then it's up to the freedom of the legislators to then meld and mold that to make it more palatable or not harm the people? I mean, is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I'm saying the ballot measures, I mean, essentially for all of this stuff, I think the ballot measures are idiotic because these guys can sit back, and instead of actually being legislators, they can sit back and let these things go. And it's like, hey, this is what the people wanted. We're just doing what the people wanted, and they don't have to do anything. They don't take a political hit for it. They don't debate it in out in the open where people can listen and understand. And I mean, it just seems like a complete dereliction of duty. And somehow we have a million of these crazy things every single election, like every 2 years.
Well, and advocates for certain causes will come to the legislature and say, hey, either you pass a bill that we approve of, or we're going to go and file a ballot measure. And so that's used as both a sword and a shield, but they or maybe a club. They beat the legislature over the head with it, and then liberals in the legislature, when business comes up and say, there's some unintended consequences here, and these things are bad, and they'll say, oh no, but we have to do it, or there'll be a ballot measure, and it'll be so much worse.
So tell us, how many states? Do you know how many states in the U.S. allow the citizens to put forth ballot measures for vote? Because I thought everybody did. I thought everybody did, but apparently it's not that common.
Don't, or at least they didn't used to. It's been a little while since I've had a political science class, but I can tell you where the initiative and the petition and so the I think one of them allows you to propose a ballot measure like you've seen, and then the other, if there is a law that the legislature adopts and you don't like that law, and if you get enough signatures, you can put the legislature's action on the ballot. So that's the initiative and the petition, and that was started right here in Oregon. I can't tell you how many years ago, but anyone who hates ballot measures can thank the citizens of Oregon from many years ago. And it was perceived as a way of putting a check on the power of the government, but instead has been weaponized for those who thinks that the government needs to do more and more and more.
Yeah. So let's get to the specifics about this, and what are the, what does it say, and what are the 5 words that are, essentially the hooks here that are going to potentially get us?
So there's 2 sections, and I'm going to read the first section in full, and it's only 1 sentence. And then the second section, that'll be a lot shorter. But so the change to the Constitution, the first section is, it is the obligation of the state to ensure that every resident of Oregon has access to cost-effective, clinically appropriate, and affordable health care as a fundamental right. And then they say they must balance this right against funding of schools and other essential public services. Now, as I said, I identified 7 words, and some people may accuse me of being cynical, but you can't have reached the age I have, and having been involved in public policy since probably at least as a sophomore in high school, and not acquired a healthy dose of cynicalness. So it's the obligation of the state to ensure that every resident, well, it doesn't define who a resident is. So during census, we count homeless people. Are they residents of Oregon? We also allow illegal immigrants to get Oregon driver's licenses. Are they residents of Oregon? We don't know. Does this then make Oregon a place where if you're feeling poorly and someplace else, you come to Oregon? I mean, not only can you do hard narcotics on the streets of the state of Oregon and not get hassled, but if you have a healthcare problem, it's your fundamental right to be treated in Oregon. So residents, the first word, has access to cost-effective.
Yeah.
What the heck is cost-effective?
Nothing in medicine. I'm kidding. Sorry.
Well, no, but
who decides what's cost-effective?
Right. So
is it the doctor? Is it the legislature? Is it the courts? And oh, by the way, anyone can sue the state of Oregon to enforce this constitutional amendment.
Or is it the insurance company?
No, but that's the point. I mean, Phil Knight's, is from here. He runs a company that rhymes with bikey. And, if he has to spend $30,000 a month on healthcare, how's that going to hurt him? He's a multi-billionaire. If you're somebody that is like camped out in front of the downtown liquor store in Eugene in a bum camp, and you have been overdosing on, tainted fentanyl pills, then you have a right to healthcare, even though you have.
I think we're now defining affordable. What's affordable?
Well, no, but
Phil Knight isn't affordable
to him is zero.
Yeah.
It's zero. So that, I mean, that's what it's gonna come down to. It's gonna come down to affordable is zero. That's how I see this play out.
Cost-effective, clinically appropriate, and affordable.
Yes.
So a court interpreting this will say, okay, there's 3 different things, so they must mean different things. Cost-effective must mean something different than affordable, and clinically appropriate must mean something different than cost-effective. Yeah. I mean, I would argue that a treatment that doesn't work is not cost-effective, even if doctors might suggest it's clinically appropriate.
So, like, in other words, the COVID vaccine would not be covered under this.
Who gets to decide? I think with the COVID vaccine, we know who got to decide.
Yeah, that. And it rhymes with Pfizer. So yeah, and I just, like, I've sat on tons of committees. I was on a pharmacy and therapeutics committee. For a couple of health insurance companies. So, we would look at what we spent money on as far as, medication benefits and all benefits. So the first thing that comes to mind is, if you have lived a great life and you hit 60 years old or 58 years old and you get cancer and, you didn't smoke and you didn't drink and you lived okay, most people would say, yeah, okay. Maybe that should be an affordable whatever. But then you look at hepatitis C treatment. Okay, well, hepatitis C is a disease that is virtually 100% caused by IV drug abuse. Okay, not like there isn't IV drug not abuse. If you're in a bump camp and you're shooting up, you're probably abusing something. But I digress. Okay, now there is very effective treatment for hepatitis C that can now cure it. But the cost is about 90 grand. So you have done something that virtually everybody in the entire universe would agree is irresponsible. You have habitually injected yourself with a substance that could kill you. And it gave you this disease that we can treat. And now it's your fundamental right for the guy working at the mill to send some of his tax money to Salem so you can get your $90,000 treatment. I don't think that really makes sense. Like, there has to be, the counterbalance to rights is responsibilities. And when you can encourage people's irresponsible behavior because they have this blanket right underneath it all, that will destroy your society morally and economically. I don't see an option other than that.
When the price is zero, fundamental economic theory means that the demand at zero price is infinite.
Right. Well, the problem I see is this thing getting hung up, no matter what it is, every time, having to decide what's affordable, clinically relevant, or appropriate. Sorry, and what was the third one? Affordable,
cost effective,
and cost effective. So who's going to decide that? Is it you can have a board of medical examiners, financiers, and lawyers every single time someone needs something?
No, but exactly right. Like, what's cost effective? Like, what is cost effective? If you look at it from the social contract, right, is treating a drug addict in a bump camp for 90 grand cost effective? You could easily make an argument, no. Well, because they're contributing nothing to society.
Let's not pick on them anymore. No, but what about somebody that's 90 years old that wants to get a bypass?
That's exactly right.
That's already got dementia, that has no quality. I mean, when does it end?
So, having listened to Tim a little bit, I suggest he can be a tad cynical when it comes to drug companies.
A tad?
And the Oregon Department, or the Oregon Health Authority, has taken the position that there are certain drugs it does not want to fund. Very, very expensive drugs for cancer treatment and chronic illnesses. So if I'm a drug company, I'm going to find a patient, say, hey, let's sue Oregon. Don't worry about the cost of the lawsuit. We got that covered. And now Oregon is required to pay for all these drugs for everybody. All of a sudden, affordable prescription medicine is out the window when it comes to Oregon.
Well, and it's just like, and that's the point. Like, the Oregon health plan, again, started by another governor who was an ER doc, Kitzhaber, who ended up leaving in disgrace, I might add, but that's a different story. It was actually rational. Okay. Like, at least it was rational. It said, we have 620 or whatever it is diagnoses. We cover these. We don't cover everything. So it looked at, if you're going to be on public assistance, we're not covering everything, but we're going to cover the stuff that's really serious so that little Johnny with the ruptured appendix doesn't get kicked out of an ER. He gets taken care of. Okay, that makes sense. This is like the complete and absolute total opposite of that.
He was very thoughtful with that. Now, I was involved with at the time that they were coming up with some of their regulations, and advocated on behalf of a residential treatment center for emotionally disturbed and severely abused kids. And who couldn't be in favor of that? But the way it was structured, there wasn't a good place to fit them. And so there were some problems with it along the margins. But but for the most part, it was very thoughtful. A lot of time went into it, and they realized that you had to ration care,
right? But
and made decisions.
Exactly, but it was so smart because you weren't rationing it post hoc. You were rationing it before.
Right.
You said, we will treat your skin infection. We won't treat your acne. Okay, but they said that before you went. So from my perspective, that's really moral. Like you put, if you're indigent and you need health care, we will cover part of that. We won't cover all of it. You're not getting a hip replacement necessarily, but you're going to get your cancer treatment, et cetera, et cetera. At least it was an attempt to pre-ration care, which seemed to me, if you're going to socialize medicine, at least a rational way to try to constrict costs and not make it into a massive socialist free-for-all, which never ends well for anybody.
Well, clear skin for 17-year-olds is clearly a fundamental right.
Well, it is now. It is now.
It's essential, is what it is for the mental health of the parents. No, I'm kidding.
So there's the second paragraph, which I stated more succinctly, but balance the funding against schools and other essential public services. What are essential public services? Is this a way of saying, okay, we have all these programs, but now we need to kill these programs and quit spending money on important things like, I don't know, eradicating pests in order to protect our food supply? Well, that's not an essential public service. That only benefits farmers. So therefore, that money has to be killed, and the money has to be diverted to providing this fundamental right of healthcare.
Yeah,
well, anytime I see the word schools deliberately put in there, I get fearful. It's just weighing, isn't it bouncing against schools?
But the weed tax was supposed to fund schools like crazy, and that seems to have not been.
Well, you know what happened is, so ballot measure, I think 90 was the original recreational marijuana bill. And it had an allocation of proceeds from marijuana tax. But then ballot measure 110 came through, which is the decriminalizing the all sorts of drug crimes and drug use. And it reallocated the way the money is spent. And so right now, as a result of that, schools and local governments originally got money. Now they don't, or they don't get it in the same share. The impacts of that were kind of hidden because of all the stimulus money associated with the pandemic. But this is going to be a factor here sometime soon. And meanwhile, there's, I don't know, $125 million that's supposed to have been used for treatment. That's just sitting in a bank account, and the state hasn't distributed it. A cynic would suggest that maybe, and I've already confessed to being cynical, a cynic might suggest that ballot measure 110 and the next ballot measure that came immediately after that, 111, perhaps they are to be read together after all. The legislature could come through and say, okay, this money's just sitting into account. We need this for this fundamental right of health care. And these other things is not an essential public service. Therefore, we're going to strip the money from what we said it was going to be used for with 110, and we're going to use this as the seed money to start working on what we're going to do with to implement this healthcare fundamental right.
I do not see how that doesn't happen. That seems like the only, because they'll go, well, the extra gym for your school isn't, fundamental, but we got to treat.
Well, what comes to mind, of course, anyone I talk to right away is they are very fearful. Taxes are going to go up more for everybody across the board, hit the middle class with this. And you're right, take away from, I think, essential things like schools and police and fire departments and roads and infrastructure, but
well, yeah,
and then we have a influx of more residents,
right, but
however you want to define it, whether it's my snowbird parents coming for the winter and get free healthcare for 3 months, or people moving here because they like the drugs and now they get their healthcare paid for, and we're all footing the bill.
Well, and the most obvious place to start taxing is where they've been taxing already for healthcare, which is people's. So the people who have healthcare, we're going to tax that so you can pay for other people who don't have healthcare.
Correct.
But if you're taxing insurance plans, which they've done, guess what? You can tax the insurance plans of individuals. You can tax the insurance plans of small business, but you cannot tax the insurance plans of large self-insured businesses. So, theoretically, if you had a business that rhymes with bikey, you would have. See, now you've got me doing it. You have a self-insurance plan. Well, that is subject to federal law. It's called ERISA. And guess what? ERISA preempts state law. So Oregon can do whatever the heck it wants to do, but it cannot touch the health insurance plans of anyone who has a plan under ERISA.
But the person that has, a small business with 5 or a dozen employees, or is going out on the public sector to buy their own plan through the market, is going to be the one now that's looking at a bigger bill.
But why would you do that? I mean, we've worked at a couple different, 2 or 3 different places over the last 4 or 5 years. And then, so we were on Cobra, and, we were on Cobra for 3 or 4 months. We had 2 months of it covered because it was still a pandemic, and there was the CARES Act, or I don't know what paid for it. And then we were on the hook, right? Which for our family, for that level of health insurance was like $2,900 a month. Okay. So it was massive. So if I have a fundamental right to healthcare, why would I do that?
Right.
Like, no matter how rich I am, why would I do that?
I wouldn't. Everyone's going to stop buying on the public market and say,
no one's going to go in the public market. And eventually, if you're a small business, we work for a small family business now. And why would you offer healthcare to your employees? It's only going to cost you more.
Yeah, but Obamacare showed the answer to that, because if you don't do it, you're going to have to pay this fine. You're going to have to pay a big penalty, which will cover the cost of the healthcare and then some, to spank you because you didn't do what they told you to do.
I don't know about bigger businesses. I know individuals would rather pay the fine because the cost of the healthcare is still more money than the fine. But I don't know about businesses.
The state of Oregon will be able to fine tune that.
Yeah, that's true. Well, let's. I mean, I'm thinking so. On the other hand,
you realize there is only one solution for this:
mass exodus. Like,
it's called Florida,
the grapes of wrath.
And we've already started buying property there.
So what's happening on the healthcare side now, from our point of view and the colleagues' point of view, which is open to interpretation, but if it's healthcare as a right, what does that mean for people that are healthcare providers? What are your legal obligations? It's the opposite of the Samaritan's Law now. It's like, if something happens to somebody literally somewhere and they're dying and I'm not providing a service, am I held accountable? Or if I have my own business as a physician or dentist and I don't have the right to refuse service now?
So we once had a president by the name of Abraham Lincoln, and during his time in office, or shortly after his time in office, the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was adopted, and it prohibits compelled work. I mean, it prohibits slavery, and it's called equal protection, but involuntary servitude went out with the 14th Amendment. So can the state of Oregon require doctors and require hospitals to treat patients for free?
Well, that's the question.
That's the question. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you'd think it was involuntary servitude, but here's the state of Oregon's argument, or what it will be, is that no, doctors are given the privilege practicing medicine in the state of Oregon by a license, and we can set out requirements for that licensing, including the requirement to treat patients, low-income patients, for free. Now, can the state of Oregon do that or not? I don't know, but that does raise the issue of takings. And I think in Washington County, there was a case a number of years ago where it was approving a subdivision. And the land planner said, fine, we'll approve your subdivision, but you need to set aside this amount of land for parks, and you need to set aside this amount of land for other public purposes. And that was sued under the takings clause of the U.S. Constitution, and the developer won on that. So even if Oregon thinks that they can condition free service by medical professionals as a condition of their license, I'm not sure the U.S. Supreme Court would agree if the court is consistent with its rulings in other cases.
Well, to tack on to that, freedom of speech doesn't seem to matter anymore as far as a license either, because physicians there's conditions now for physician license. If you speak against the science, they will take your license away. So
I am the science.
The people who say that the science is settled don't understand science. I mean, it's always about questioning things. And there was a lot of science that people thought was settled, and then come to find out that's not true. Guess what? The Earth is round. It's not flat.
Right. So my thinking is, if they can manipulate physician licenses and take them away because they don't like your speech, then why would they care about whether you're a slave to the state to provide healthcare services?
Well, I think if someone were to challenge that, hopefully you would win. I mean,
I hope.
Thing is, I think we have figured out that the Earth is not the center of the solar system, and certainly our solar system is not the center of the universe.
But also, the other thing you got to remember is, we live in a republic, and it's not very hard to go to Idaho. It's not very hard to go to Montana. I mean, we're primary care doctors. We literally can get jobs anywhere we want. It might take you 6 months to get a license in a different state. Some states are really difficult, like Texas, but we can get a license anywhere we want, and we can go wherever we want. And so there's going to be I don't see anything but a mass once these
patients coming in.
Yeah. Once physicians feel the pain of what happens with this, plus there'll be an influx of people potentially, and your supply and demand of producers and consumers is so potentially going to be out of whack that good. Maybe the system will just collapse in Oregon, and they'll realize that they have to have ballot measure 112, which is, we were dumbasses and we changed our mind.
Well, it won't be 112, because 112 is remove slavery from the Oregon Constitution measure. So
we're going to remove stuff from the Constitution that's not in the Constitution, because they're all hot.
The fundamental problem with healthcare is we don't have enough physicians, and we don't have enough nurses, and we don't have enough of trained healthcare providers to cover everybody who may desire healthcare. I mean, Obamacare, we go through this tremendous exercise. How many new medical schools was created by Obamacare? How many medical schools increased their enrollment as a result of Obamacare? Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that it's zero. It's the same number of doctors treating a much bigger base of people, and we're going to control costs somehow.
All they had to do was poll somebody up north or get right across the border into Canada and ask them how it's going up there. Hello,
well, yeah, but
we're from there for a reason.
Plus, the word is healthcare, which drives me completely nuts, because that's
There's the other word.
Massive definition. well, what's healthcare? Well, it's whatever you want it to be. Okay. So when I left my corporate gig and was working with insurance company stuff and seeing patients, the new buzzword, and this would have been 5, 6, 7 years ago, was social determinants of health. And I was like, no. We're done. Okay. You're going to tell me that poor people have poorer health. Really? Wow. Homeless people have poorer health outcomes. Really? That's genius. So I sat there and I said, look, we're doctors. We diagnose and treat disease. That's what we do. We don't, you start piling in the social ills of society into healthcare. Well, then everything's healthcare. Whether or not my wife, gave me a back rub and tucked me in is healthcare because it's mental health. Whether or not I can have an abortion at 39 and a half weeks is healthcare because now my boyfriend left me and I can't raise it. Like everything's healthcare. Like everything you want to be. Recreation is healthcare. I don't feel whole as a person and my depression gets worse unless I go skydiving 5 times a year. Oh, well, like that, like it's an infinite line drawing that you can draw, and we're seeing that already. We've been seeing this for years and years and years.
I get stressed when my boss yells at me at work because I haven't completed the projects I was supposed to complete.
Exactly. And everybody's going to get a free pet because it's their emotional support animal. So now,
yeah. So in Oregon, what's going to happen? The legislature that convenes in February will try to do something. But something good happened this last legislative cycle or elections.
Do tell.
Well, and you did see that about 2 hours ago, a House race in Colorado was called for the Republican, and so now the Republicans will have a majority in the U.S. House. But in the Oregon House and in the Oregon Senate, the Democrats have had what are called super majorities. And super majorities are required in order to pass tax bills. And so this all is going to come back into the hands of the legislature come February. And they no longer have a super majority of Democrats, which means in order to increase taxes to pay for this new fundamental right, they will need to have Republicans vote in favor. And if Republicans don't vote in favor, they won't be able to pass it. So then what happens? Well, there's a couple things that happens. One, the advocates can go back to the ballot box. By the way, we're talking about looking at who supported things, and most notable on that list, let's see if I wrote their name down. Healthcare for All Oregon. Who is Healthcare for All Oregon? That seems like a good thing. Well, they are a single payer universal healthcare advocate. That's what this is about. And the more people told you that's not what it's about, it is what it's about, even if it doesn't say it, because ultimately it's up to the courts to fill in the blanks on what was intended. So if it can't go through the legislature because of the tax increases, and it could go back to a ballot measure, but the quicker route would be to bring lawsuits in Oregon, saying I want to assert my fundamental right. Will the court give deference to the legislature, or will the court impose its own judgment? A court could say, hey, Oregon, you must go to single payer universal healthcare system. That's the only way to implement this, and you need to do it by this date. And that means everything else gets thrown out. Everything Oregon has done. What Governor Kitzhaber did with the Oregon Health Plan, that all gets thrown out. This is the new deal according to the court. Or another trick that liberals like to use, particularly when you have a liberal administration, if there's something they can't get through the legislature, then they have an advocacy group bring a lawsuit. And then the attorney general agrees to enter into a consent decree. And by a consent decree, it says, okay, we will do these things. And I don't have some good examples of consent decrees. They really started with prison overcrowding, I believe. But there have been a number of other areas where I believe the Obama administration agreed to some consent decrees, which a lot of people took exception with, but could certainly do that in Oregon too, with the cooperation of the Attorney General.
Yeah, every time I hear decree, the 1776 part of my spine starts to like get really hackled, if that's such a word. You know, it is. I guess basically to sum this up, what I'm hearing is Oregon, not such a great place to be a doctor, amazing to be a lawyer, because there's going to be a lot.
Absolutely. For lawyers who practice in this area, it will be a full employment act. I don't, so I'm not going to be part of that gravy train, and it would be terrible. It would be terrible to be part of that, just because I know how fundamentally they're wrong. Another thing, though, if you add all these people into the healthcare roles, and you have doctors retiring early or moving to Idaho or Florida or some other place, who's going to treat the elderly? So, I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of retired people, and you think of poor senior citizens, low income senior citizens, but that generation is where all the wealth is. And if all those people start moving out of Oregon so they can get better health care someplace else, Oregon's going to be in a much bigger world of hurt without the tax base, without the investment, without
it doesn't sound like it's going to end well.
Well, no, but they've done this. I mean, they did this on the back of they've done this for eons on the backs of the timber industry, because it's not like you can just take your timber factory and drive it to, Nevada, right? I mean, you're stuck. Gigantic trees grow really quickly in the Pacific Northwest. And so, all these timber taxes and all this extra whatever it is, so that we don't have a sales tax, and, but yet you get taxed like out the wazoo in so many other ways that you end up paying more tax than virtually any other state in the entire country. But we don't have sales tax, and we can't pump our own gas. Yippee-yi-yay.
So there is a private study that was conducted, and the report came out just a couple of weeks ago, and there's a press release associated with it, but it's kind of an egghead thing. And so I don't think it got a lot of media attention, but Oregon has the second highest taxes of any state in the nation.
Yeah, I think we're right after New York, aren't we?
Yes, but here's the difference. New York, the highest tax level kicks in at $25 million, the highest tax rate. In Oregon, that highest tax rate kicks in at $125,000.
Yes, we know it. Most people, it's ridiculous. I saw that. I looked it up because looking to move, I was looking for reasons to stay, reasons to go. And I did see that how high of a tax bracket Oregon is. I couldn't believe it, as well as what the recent increase in food, gas. It's just,
no, I have these discussions with my friends. I said, look, we like the Gulf Coast of Florida. Our daughter lives across the Gulf in Texas. We don't want to live in Texas because there's we like the beach. Our son's going to live wherever the United States Air Force tells him to live, blah, blah, blah. We have nothing really keeping us here. We gave the absolute peaks of our career to some of the poorest, most indigent people in the entire country. We're kind of ticked all the boxes, right? So, and I'd say, look, and the taxes here are ridiculous. Yeah, but your property tax in Florida is going to be high. And I go, compared to what?
Yeah.
And there's people I know that I've discussed this with, and they say this is the cost of living in such a beautiful state. I'm happy to pay it.
Have they driven through downtown Portland?
I'm just saying it.
Well, no, have they gone outside in January and rusted to death? I mean, like, look, every place has its issues.
There's a lot of people who are happy to pay it, and that's and they're staying and they're continuing to pay it.
No, and
But
that's
I'm not
fine, and that's fine. That's their choice. I don't begrudge that to anybody. If we had a bunch of grandkids here, we wouldn't leave either. I get all that. Like, that all makes perfectly rational sense to me. It's staggeringly beautiful place. I've loved living
you
here.
have to look
I'll
at what
love
are you
coming
getting,
back in the summer.
what are you getting for your tax money though?
Right, but that's the point. Is that you know there's a lot of reasons for us to move, and taxes and politics are only part of it. But we did it once already. We left our country of our own birth, which is a very big deal to do, even though it's just Canada to the United States. And we realized how liberating it was to say, I'm going to live my life on my terms, not on somebody else's. And so we're just going to do that again. And where we land, we honestly don't really know. But I sure as hell am not going to put up with this. Like, this is the last absolute. COVID basically finished us for wanting to practice medicine. This is just such a level of complete insanity that I just can't countenance it.
I will tell you, when I was on the board of directors of the United States Chamber of Commerce, the meetings were usually in Washington, D.C., except for the winter meetings, which were in Florida. But after September 11th, 2001, must have been our spring meeting the next year was in Washington, D.C., was in New York City in solidarity after September 11th. And we, of course, received, we met with a number of, we met with the governor, we met with the mayor. Mayor Bloomberg was mayor at the time, and he was a former board member of the U.S. Chamber. And we met with some other people. But when they're talking about New York, and you're in this concrete jungle, I mean, it's really so different than Oregon. But what's their number one reason for moving your business to New York? And they made the pitch, or expanding operations to New York. It's quality of life. If you go to Louisiana, they are promoting quality of life. If you go to Florida, they're promoting quality of life. Pick a state. They are promoting quality of life. And so Oregon is not unique there. Oregon had an economist who once said that, well, in Oregon, you get a second paycheck, and that's all the environmental amenities of Oregon and the quality of life in Oregon. Well, you get that second paycheck in every state of the union. Everything has something about it that makes it special. And Oregon is not unique. I mean, and it's very arrogant or naive or manipulative to suggest that.
Well, no, I love it. And it's up to the individuals absolutely to decide, is this worth my money? Is this where I'm living and what I'm getting for my tax dollars and my not even tax dollars at the grocery store, etc., worth my money?
Well, if you love bum camps, I mean, keep Portland weird.
So business is polite. Business will say, hey, don't do these things, or there'll be rational consequences. And these are what the consequences include. But when ballot measures 66 and 67 hit, for those people who don't remember, those people who are outside the state of Oregon, they were huge tax increase measures, personal income tax increase measures. We said, hey, people are going to move. People are going to move their businesses out of the area. And I will tell you, a number of my clients did, in fact, do that. But the state of Oregon will tell you, we know of no business that did that. No business is going to say that's why they did that. They're just going to vote with their feet. But the best example, a huge manufacturer out of Portland, and they've been in Portland forever and have employ a lot of people, and they make really big stuff. And the CEO of the corporation was a friend of mine who I met through my involvement with AOI at the time, and I knew that they were going to move out of Portland, and I knew why. But when they did the press conference where they announced they were leaving, they said, well, the reason why we're shutting it down and eliminating all these jobs in Oregon is because of market conditions. And of course, a reporter goes, well, when market conditions improve, are you going to restart the lines and hire all these people back? And the poor spokesperson just shook his head and goes, oh, no, we're not going to do that. I mean, it was like, oh, Lord, no. Which was kind of an indication of why those thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs left. It was because of tax policy, yet the state of Oregon won't recognize that.
Well, but you see, I think that, there's a point where you just have to be honest, and you kind of have to nut up and speak your mind, right? And that's, Dave Chappelle nailed it on SNL this last week, where he talked about what was the appeal of Trump. And he said, Trump comes out in a debate and says, the system is rigged. And they said, okay, well, how's the system rigged? And how do you know that? What's your evidence? He goes, because I've used the rigged system for my advantage. And everyone goes, and he's like, if you don't understand how that plays in places like Iowa and Ohio we know it's rigged. This insider told us, and we don't really care if he still uses the rigged system. At least he told us at least he's an honest liar. And there's a point where you don't do the state or your friends or anybody a service by not saying we're leaving because these guys are making terrible decisions. I mean, when we left Canada, we did an interview with CBC Radio, and they said, why are you going? And I said, because the government's telling us where we can practice, and I won't countenance that. We have a better opportunity, and thanks for helping us with our education, but I'm not going to be told where I can live. And they're like, oh, really?
Well, being a little guy, you have the freedom to do that. When you are the CEO of a publicly traded corporation,
right,
and union funds and state investments are part of your shareholder base and affects your share value, you can't really go out and be that level of honest. There are some people who don't care. Elon Musk seems to be one of those people, and boy, folks are trying to take him down. Although it is nice that all the liberals help make him a fortune by buying electric cars from him.
I love it. I love it.
But you can say that. I can say that. I know that by being outspoken, I've lost clients over the years. And that just kind of comes with the territory. Other lawyers don't do that. I've had businesses call me and say, well, Alan, we need someone to advocate for this. Well, why don't you have your lawyer do it? Oh, he won't do it. Well, maybe you need to get a different lawyer. Well, no, we've been with them for a long time. You're right. People need to speak up. There is a cost associated with speaking up. Some people are willing to pay that cost, but the cost is different for different people.
Right.
No, and that's good. I mean, you are, I mean, what do they call that? This is Alan provides a sober second look.
I love it.
But after talking to him for an hour, I may not stay sober. Because this is as bad as I thought. This is as all my machinations were. This is exactly you are confirming everyone.
So for people,
you asked me to do this, so I looked into it a little deeper and thought about it a little harder than I had. I mean, I knew it was bad. I voted no. I knew it was going to pass because they had the right ballot title, and that was kind of all the thought I had put into it. But once I got into this, this is for Oregon is going to be twisting for the next 10 or 20 years on how to implement this. Democrats are going to keep trying to figure out how to raise taxes. The courts are going to try to twist the legislature and tell them you have no choice but to do whatever. I mean, it's just bad.
Well, all I can say is years after Obamacare got voted in and we were left trying to explain to patients the subsequent consequences of what was happening with costs and why we were doing things certain ways in the office. All I could say was elections have consequences.
Right. Well, and then they're like, oh,
they can't connect the dots. And unfortunately,
why can't I find a family doctor? I've had one. Because elections have consequences. Because people leave when
so it's just sad for the people that are going to be affected. So that's all I can think is just not really any happy ending to this.
Well, here's a happy ending for you. I mean, I actually thought about this, knowing what I was going to suggest.
Perfect.
Kind of depressing. Like, how can we leave this on a light note? At one level or another, it's all politics. And you know what the definition of politics is, don't you?
I don't know.
Not yours.
Well, just break it down into its root words. So poly, which means many, and ticks, which of course are blood-sucking parasites.
I love it. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Oh, that's great. I love it. That's better than the other pikey, bikey joke probably you're going to tell.
Yeah, I think you'll like those too.
Yeah, it is.
We need to pause.
Yeah, no, this is good. We could go on like all day, all night on this stuff because I've thought about this for a long, long time. And, the lack of thinking, you're manipulating people that just aren't thinking about an issue. Like I never thought about that slavery issue because I'm like, it's in the Constitution. It shouldn't be. Well, but it's manipulation and these guys are masters at it. And to think that we never get manipulated is meaning that you're getting manipulated,
Well, and that was a poll tested ballot title.
Wow.
If you asked, should prisoners be required to work as part of their incarceration? Guess what? That's going to fail if you try to prohibit that. But should we prohibit slavery? Well, wait a minute. I thought we did that with the 14th Amendment.
I know.
Well, we did.
Wow. Well,
outstanding.
On that note, can't wait to have you back. Although I hope it's not another dismal reason like ballot measure 111. So, we can find something more positive.
Well, I can virtually guarantee you, knowing where I've worked, that the vast majority of physicians I've worked for voted for this. I can virtually in this state. They haven't worked with me recently because they would have gotten an earful, but there's no way. I know they would. They're like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Well, and it might help us out. We'll get a little more funding. So,
well, my young daughter had some car problems as she was leaving work, and so she called me, and I was racing to reassure her and take her to the shop, and they know me at the shop, and but I told him, I go, hey, I got to go. I've got an interview coming up. Well, what are you being interviewed on? I talked about ballot measure 111, and they said, well, what's that? And I go, well, that's healthcare as a fundamental right. And they go, well, what's that? And I go, did you vote? Did you vote? And they said no. And I said, well, here's some of the issues. And they were going, that's terrible. How could it pass? I go, well, it's because you didn't vote.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
The Democrats and the liberal advocates know how to get ballots to the ballot box. The rest of us need to figure that out as well.
No, that's an excellent way to end it. That's exactly it. The system's there's always been corruption in the system. But you have to figure out what rules we're playing by now and play at least to the same level as, your side needs to play to the same level as the other side. And
I guess act like Trump and just follow the rules.
Yeah.
Great. I love rules. Great rules. Best rules ever. Fantastic rules.
Oh, that's good. And people on the air or people listening to this can't see the facial expressions and the hand gestures. But
we have to go on Rumble because we get for some reason they take down some of our stuff on YouTube.
Yes.
Well,
but if they're watching on Rumble, they get the full effect.
They get the hands. Great. I made a big announcement. Huge announcement.
Yeah. Well, if you want, next time we can talk about a bill that AARP is trying to get through the Oregon legislature and some of the consequences, either intended or unintended, of that bill. And maybe that'll be time to allow some people to weigh in and try to influence the legislation.
Outstanding. Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we would love to have you back again because this is always really helpful. I mean, the legal stuff, people don't realize how much it affects their life, and it's really important. All right. Well, that was a fun and spirited discussion, and I think very informative. I know I learned a lot. I did not kind of know at all where this ballot measure stuff came from, and
yeah, it was really helpful having that background discussion to, I hate to use the word, it's been so overused, but to unpack all the meaning behind the phrases in the ballot measure, but also to get all that back information as well. So thanks, Alan.
Yes, thank you. So in summary, there is a passage from Atlas Shrugged, which is, I mean, probably 14, I think it's like 1,200 pages of microprint. But
and if you've never read Atlas Shrugged before, I suggest you get the Audible version. Did we talk about that with Alan on the show?
Yes, a little bit, but
or maybe it was before we recorded. But
there is a tremendous several paragraphs kind of encapsulating the concepts of who owns your mind, who owns what you can produce, the service that you can produce. There's a doctor in the book. His name is Dr. Hendricks, and he ends up quitting medicine because of government intrusion. And we're not going to get into the details of what the book is about that you can see, but he explains this, and it's fantastic. Now you got to remember, this book was written in the 40s, in the late 40s. This is before Medicare, even in Canada. It was right at about the emergence of Medicare in the National Health Service in Britain, which started, I think, in 1948. This book was written either in the late 40s or early 50s. So here we go. I quit when medicine was placed under state control some years ago, said Dr. Hendricks. Do you know what it takes to perform a brain operation? Do you know the kind of skill it demands and the years of passionate, merciless, excruciating devotion that go to acquire that skill? That was what I would not place at the disposal of men whose sole qualification to rule me was their capacity to spout the fraudulent generalities that got them elected to the privilege of enforcing their wishes at the point of a gun. I would not let them dictate the purpose for which my years of study had been spent, or the conditions of my work, or the choice of my patients, or the amount of my reward. I observed that in all the discussions that preceded the enslavement of medicine, men discussed everything except the desires of the doctors. Men considered only the welfare of the patients with no thought for those who provide it. That a doctor should have any right, desire, or choice in the matter was regarded as irrelevant selfishness. His is not to choose, they said, only to serve. That a man who's willing to work under compulsion is too dangerous a brute to entrust with the job in the stockyards never occurred to those who proposed to help the sick by making life impossible for the healthy. I have often wondered at the smugness with which people assert their right to enslave me, to control my work, to force my will, to violate my conscience, to stifle my mind. Yet what is it that they expect to depend on when they lie on an operating table under my hands? Their moral code has taught them to believe that it is safe to rely on the virtue of their victims. Well, that is the virtue I have withdrawn. Let them discover the kind of doctors that their system will produce. Let them discover in their operating rooms and hospital wards that it is not safe to place their lives in the hands of men whose life they have throttled. It is not safe. If he is the sort of man who resents it, and still less safe, get this, if he is the sort who doesn't. That is brilliant. What kind of doctors do you get? Do you know what kind of doctors you get? You get doctors that give remdesivir and not ivermectin when a patient requests it. That's what you get. We've got them now. I just read a quote on the C19 group this morning about a patient who was begging ivermectin. Whether it would have worked for their spouse or not, they just requested it. It's a safe drug. Whether it was effective in that case, who knows? And they searched the guy every time he came back to the ICU to see his spouse to make sure he wasn't smuggling ivermectin into the hospital.
Wow.
Can you
actually
that
I'm not
actually
surprised.
happened?
I've heard
or,
that
or the other
let's
guy
just
that
say friends working up north, same thing.
yes, or that guy that started an entire movement. This was back in 2020 because his wife had this terrible series of complications from various medical problems, and no one could visit her at all in the ICU, and she died by herself with his 13 and 11-year-old kids.
Because that's what the system had voted for.
That's the kind of doctors you get, the ones that don't get pissed off when you take their rights away.
It's frightening, and it's happening already. And now we voted it in. Essentially in Oregon.
It's not about being uncharitable, or it's not about not wanting to volunteer. It's about coercion. That is what we passionately disagree with. Yeah. It's, we've given away tons and tons of care. That's not the issue. And it's not the issue of being selfish or not generous. It's coercion.
Well, you take away someone's right to make a decision, and you're basically saying you have no decision-making power. You have to just follow the rules.
Well, and
you'll end up with.
Well, exactly. And if you question the rules in the incorrect way, then we'll take your license, or we'll,
you fail to exist. Exactly. It just becomes,
you get depersoned. Yeah. It really is. I never would have imagined 2-3 years, 2018, that we'd be having these kind of discussions
and
rapidly.
Well, we have an upcoming episode the next week or two, basically with the similar follow-up story of someone who has been decommissioned and lost his license because he questioned, challenged, didn't do anything criminal or causing patient harm or anything untoward to the patients, and not towing party line. He's gone. So we'll see what happens with this measure. But like Alan said, maybe we need to start forming groups to try to repeal these and get them taken away. And it's up to everybody.
Because, we have genius things in the Constitution of Oregon. Like, it is illegal to hunt cougars with dogs.
Well, in the meantime,
in the Constitution of the state of Oregon.
Maybe you need to think about moving to Texas.
Well,
if the shoe fits, I should say in this case,
hat doesn't fit. My head is too giant. But look at this.
If the hat fits,
look at this.
Look
at this. Okay, it barely fits on my head. Okay, and it eats her head.
On my head,
gone. Her head is gone.
It's a 20-gallon hat. Well, one size doesn't fit all when it comes to hats or legislation.
You're gonna start the massive melon society.
Oops, sorry about that background noise as I get rid of this hat. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this interesting, informative episode and a little bit entertaining at the beginning. Thanks to everybody that participated in our 100th episode giveaway. We are hoping we're going to be around for another 100. So keep sharing our page, keep liking our posts, and we'll see you next time. It's no secret that medicine is a bit uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
Well, we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible. We can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know, bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com.